This episode of Loose Women, the podcast, contains some adult themes, including discussions around depression and anxiety. Coming up.
My youngest caught me not that long ago in like the depths of despair, and I was just really, really crying. And he came in and I just completely panicked.
For me to actually say, my name is Kaye and I'm 62, is huge for me. It is absolutely huge for me. And
why do you think you've always felt like that, though?
Oh, it's my mum's fault.
I feel like I was brought up in an age where we're not meant to age. You know, we're not allowed as women to look older or to get older. For me, when I got pregnant, that was just a real sign to me that I'd lost full control of my body, because you can't control it. And I feel like I got a lot of negative attention around that.
The most difficult time has definitely been, caring for my mum and dad, and then them passing away, and the kids were teenagers. And so, like, those two things pulling you was really, really hard. Well, welcome to Loose Women, the podcast, with me, Kaye Adams, and the lovely Frankie Bridge. They paid me to say that, Frankie.
Thanks.
Thank you to everyone who has been listening to the podcast, to following, subscribing and rating us. It really does mean a lot to us, and it helps us, to know that you're enjoying it and that you're not missing a single episode. So genuinely, thank you very, very much for that. So, Frankie, I'm really pleased that we're doing this together. Don't look so nervous. What did you do that for?
I don't know, this feels strange.
Because I've wanted to ask you for ages, when did you realise how much you loved and admired me?
So what are you going to ask? I just want to make something very clear.
Okay.
We've always had this, bantery relationship, haven't we?
Yeah.
But you are actually the person that started the whole Nana thing, me calling you Nana.
It was you, it wasn't me.
It was not me.
How?
You used to say, oh, I feel like you're Nana, come on, help me, child, da, da, da. Then I've just carried it on, and now everyone thinks I'm really mean.
So it wasn't you that started the Nana stuff?
No, you started it. Because you always had such an issue with me being so much younger than you.
Well, yeah. It's funny because when you first sort of came on board, it's not that I didn't think we would get on. It's just that I always have this thing with young, beautiful, glamorous women that I just think they're different from me. And I thought, well, she seems like a nice girl, but I didn't think we'd have a relationship. If you and I are having a conversation, we can't avoid the topic of ageing, can we?
No,
really?
It's a big thing for us, isn't it?
I don't know, yeah, it's part of our, I was going to say love language, but that's creepy. Our friendship language, yeah. Joking about it. But, I mean, now we've got a situation, where really young kids are buying anti-aging products.
Oh, I know.
And even in that terminology, anti-aging, obviously the suggestion is there that it's something that you want to avoid and that you want to fend off, when actually we should be grateful, for more years of life. But, I mean, you're what, 36 now?
Yeah.
Do you think about aging? Do you worry about aging?
All the time. It's so bad. I know deep down, I am grateful to age, because obviously I know it means I'm still alive, and, there's lots of people that don't get to age, and I'm very grateful for that. But as you say, I feel like I was brought up in an age where we're not meant to age. We're not allowed as women to look older or to get older. And I think, as someone who has been in the public eye from such a young age, it's like people get stuck on how you look when they first saw you.
So what age were you when you came into the public eye?
So I was 12.
What were you doing again?
So I was in my first pop group, S Cub Juniors.
Right.
Then I was in a band called the Saturdays.
I've heard of them.
Oh, thanks. So glad you like us. Although we played a song once and you had no idea who it was, so
I'm very
I beg
old,
to differ.
Frankie.
And I think it's almost like, I don't blame people, and you see it a lot, is it Millie Bobby Brown? She recently posted that she, just kind of saying that everyone needs to leave her alone for how she looks and how she chooses to dress.
She's only in her early 20s.
She's so young, but she started in the public eye at such a young age. It's like we expect people to stay who they are and what they look like from that first thing that we've seen them as.
So you're talking about Millie Bobby Brown there. I mean, do you relate to that? Like not being allowed to age?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to for a second act like I'm as famous as Millie Bobby Brown, but I get where she's coming from, because you start as a child in front of everyone in the public eye, and that's how you're viewed. And people find it really hard to watch you change and grow up. And obviously, it's something we all do, but not everyone gets the pleasure of doing that in peace and quiet. And I found it really hard when I was first pregnant with my first baby. I was still in the band the Saturdays, so I was only 24. I was
you were
still
young.
yeah. And I found it really difficult. People were obsessed. I think they are anyway with pregnant women and how they change and are you going to snap back and what do you look like and everything around pregnancy is a thing. It's a conversation for another day. But I found that really hard, the scrutiny over my body. And it was something that I was so aware of, that everyone was used to seeing me, you know, a size 8, dancing around in skirts, dancing with the girls on stage. And obviously dance moves had to change, my outfits had to change. And I was so self-conscious. And for me, I was having a personal battle anyway, because I'd always been quite controlling with what I ate. You know, I was really aware of my weight, and I'd always been slim. And for me, when I got pregnant, that was just a real sign to me that I'd lost full control of my body, because you can't control it. What happens, happens. And I found that really difficult, and I feel like I got a lot of negative attention around that.
Well, there's also something, isn't there, about, you know, up there as a pop star. There's something about being sexual. I'm not suggesting you're sexually available, but, you know, that is the kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you're meant to be single, fun, and yeah.
Yeah, you know.
And now you're a mum.
Well, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a real kind of contradiction there, isn't it? I mean, did you still feel that you were dancing on stage pregnant, having to be sexy?
Yeah, it felt weird. It did feel weird. I mean, it shouldn't, you know, for everyone, and everyone feels differently when they're pregnant. I was someone that I didn't feel like I had that beautiful glow that people had, you know. It didn't feel like a beautiful, wonderful thing for me. Obviously, the fact that I was growing my child was beautiful and wonderful, and I couldn't wait to have him. But for me, it was definitely a means to an end. You know, I didn't feel like I had that glow up.
Yeah.
And some women feel ridiculously sexy when they're pregnant, but that just wasn't the case for me.
But the weight thing must have been major there, because as you say, there was so much emphasis on you being, from your own personal head and also from the world, to being super, super slim.
Yeah.
And you can't be pregnant and slim.
No, and when you're dancing next to 4 other girls who still look how they've always looked, and dressing in the same way that they've always dressed, and dancing in the same way that we always dance, you feel like you're in completely the wrong environment. It just felt, you know what, it's just change. Any sort of change in those situations is just not very easily accepted by you or anyone else watching. It's hard.
So at what point then did you start to be conscious of, I am getting older?
I'd say once I got into my 30s.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I think it's weird because I feel like when I turned 30, I was kind of a bit gutted to be out of my 20s, but also buzzing because it was my 30th. And then we went into lockdown, so I feel like around COVID, and I feel like loads of people, like I feel like those years didn't happen. Like I remember a day and someone telling me how old I was, and I was like, no, because I've just turned 30. And then I was like, that feels really unfair that those have kind of like disappeared, like nothing really happened in that time. And I'm just really, it makes me really self-conscious, you know, if I get more wrinkles and...
But, I mean, just in that sentence, and I mean, listen, I'm no person to preach because, I mean...
You've only just started being honest about your age.
I know. I mean, I could, you know, go in... For me to actually say, my name is Kaye and I'm 62, is huge for me. It is absolutely huge for me. And
why do you think you've always felt like that, though?
Oh, it's my mum's fault. It's totally my mum's fault. She was just... It was a big thing for her. That she would only ever say she was over 21, which was a kind of... In fact, when my mum died, this is the only tattoo I've ever got and will ever get, and it says over 21. Because
so that's if someone asked her how old she was, that's how she...
That's what she would say. That's what she would say.
Even into...
We got stopped. Well, she got stopped for speeding once. My brother and I were in the back of the car, and the young policeman said, took all the details and said, "Your age, madam," and she said, "Over 21." And he said, "No, madam, I'm going to need your date of birth." She went, "Over 21. And oh my, she was fierce, my mum. Anyway, cut to the police station. My dad had to come in and talk. He said, "It's all right, officer. She's for her. Gave a date of birth or whatever." And it was just a thing with my mum, and we used to laugh about it as kids. I mean, we had so many jokes about my mum being silly about her age, and I went and did the same thing. I just must have absorbed it. I don't, and I can't even, from where I sit now, I can't even explain why I felt that way.
Yeah.
But I felt that way. I really felt that way.
Because you've started a whole podcast about the fact that you turned 60 and what it's like to be 60.
But it's because I wasn't comfortable with it. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
For you, is it the physical or is it the?
Well, there's just so many negative connotations. Even you just saying, you felt old. I mean, so nobody wants to feel old. You want to feel young. You want to feel young at heart. You'll hear people say that, or you don't look that age.
Yeah.
So all of our common language is around, it is not a good thing to be old. And to get to a point that you actually embrace it. I mean, a lot of people talking about Pamela Anderson just now.
Yeah.
And, where she's going, that she's not the glamorous. And I really take my hat off to her, and I've kind of thought about this a lot. And now that's not to say that people shouldn't be wearing makeup or looking great or whatever, but I mean, as women, when are we going to be allowed to be, what we are,
Do you think it's to do with, this is a bit deep, but you know what I mean, is it to do with the fact that the older you get, the nearer you are to the end of your life? Or do you think it is just that we want to stay beautiful and...
I don't know. It's the thing is, we never know when we're near the end of our life. I mean, clearly, obviously, statistically, the longer on your planet, we're all going to die. But bad things happen at any age. I do think for women, a lot of it is to do with the sexualisation of women, and that you get past a certain stage and you're no longer desirable in that way.
I think that's
so you've
a big
lost some
part
of your
for me.
value. And for you, you're absolutely gorgeous, and you were known for your looks from a young age, probably to the exclusion of all the other wonderful things that you had to offer.
Yeah.
But if you are taught from a young age to value the way you look, and then you think that might be sort of slipping away from you, that's deep, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think that's what it is. I'm like, if people don't think I'm pretty, or if people don't fancy me, then what have I got to offer? And I don't believe that as much now, but I would say only in the last couple of years have I gone, well, actually, I am a little bit more than that. I have got a lot more than that to offer.
Yeah.
But I still also can't bear it. Like, I did a podcast the other day and I watched it back and all I could see was wrinkles under my eyes. All I can look at. And I'm talking about I'm having an important conversation, and it was all for International Women's Day. And then I'm like, just sat there watching it thinking, oh God, I look wrinkly. And I know that that's silly, but also...
It's the way you feel, so I don't think we should dismiss it as silly, because the level of conditioning that we're all subjected to, and all the kind of messages out there we're subjected to, they're really powerful, so I don't think it's silly to be thinking that. I mean, I always say it's different for me because, and this sounds as if I'm pleading for sympathy here, I'm not. I was never known for my looks. My mum actually said that to me once when I was going for a job. She said, well, it's not as if you're known for your looks. I said, thanks, Mum. But I knew what she was saying, actually, and I'm really glad for it. I'm really glad for it, because I often think with very beautiful women, when age, changes them as it does, that it really must rock you. Whereas I've never been known for that.
But you did struggle when you needed a hearing aid, didn't you?
Yeah, yes, I did, because I suppose that was a signal of, just not functioning as well anymore, sort of degrading a little bit. I mean, I've completely changed my tune on that now, in that, I wear hearing aids. I'm happy to show anyone my hearing aids. They allow me to participate in life much, better, more actively, etc. I have no problem with that at all. But, when you get that first little sign, there is that kind of, ooh, right, okay. But the main thing, so I'm 62 now, really struggled with age all my life, and certainly been 60, because there's no upside to 60. I mean, you look at greetings cards, you're amazing in your 20s, your 30s, you're even fabulous in your 50s. Once you get to 60, I mean, all the greetings cards are like, you've got no teeth, your boobs are on the table, you've got flatulence, there's no kind of upside to
I've got
it.
all that now.
And people say, well, I've got the age, I just don't care anymore.
But do you? Because sometimes I don't know if I believe it.
Well, I tell you what is, because I have been thinking about this, of course I still care, because when you stop caring, then that's when you just turn your face to the wall. I care about lots of things, but the noises in my head that I get are still in your head, they have really quietened down. Mm-hmm. They have really quietened down. And I feel much steadier than I did when I was younger, believe me. I was a major stress head. And that has... Like today on the show, to be honest, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And 20 years ago, that would have killed me. It would absolutely have killed me. I'd have gone home and it'd go round my head and whatever. And today I think, okay, you made a mistake. That's the way things go. You didn't do it intentionally. You tried to fix it. We go on. And so that sort of punching boxing match that goes on inside your head has calmed down, and that is a wonderful thing about age.
But why do you think that comes with age?
Maybe that is the secret. Maybe that's why it's not as bad as we think it's going to be. Maybe that is the gift. Maybe that is the gift, and maybe you've got to go through all the kind of trials and tribulations before it. I don't know.
You better daft well.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, we do have lots of advice in our show notes, including a helpline, but it is time for a break, so we will see you after this. Welcome back. Today's episode is all about sort of sharing our life lessons, isn't it? And so we're going to go a bit more deep and a bit more personal than we have time to do on the show. And we want to tackle issues that are very close to our listeners' hearts, in the hope that we can help them and inspire them. And obviously you've been very open about your mental health. And I was wondering how you deal with that with your kids. Right? What do you say to them about when you're feeling low, when things are difficult?
It's a hard one, because I feel like my answer should be that they know everything. I feel like I should have had the conversation with them that I do suffer with depression and anxiety. But I think it's a hard conversation to have with them, because I don't know how much of it they really understand. I think the anxiety side they know about, because my youngest often talks to me about anxiety, and that's quite an open conversation that we have. But depression, I feel like, is harder to explain. And actually, my youngest caught me not that long ago in like the depths of despair on a day I was having a particularly bad day, and I was just really, really crying. And he came in, and I just completely panicked. I didn't, I wasn't really in my right mind anyway, and I wasn't in the moment of having that kind of conversation with him. And I just panicked, and he said, "Mummy, are you okay? What's wrong?" And I just said, "Oh, I've got a really bad migraine." And, he kind of accepted that and said, "Oh, I hope you feel better," and kind of left. And I didn't really realise how much that had sat with him until my birthday a couple of months ago. And Wayne said to me, "Look, there's a present that Carter wanted me to get for you," because Carter really loves celebrating people's birthdays and picking them a present, and he really thinks about it. He said, "It's really random, but when you open it, you'll understand what it is." And when I opened it, it was 2 boxes of ibuprofen. And he said to Wayne, he said, "Should we get her something that can help with migraines? Because she gets them really bad, doesn't she?"
Oh my God.
And then that's why I'd got them. And actually, I just thought that was so sweet. But then I thought, I'm really going to have to explain this to him. Otherwise, every time when he's growing up, someone cries, he's going to think they've got a migraine.
So did you have a conversation with him?
I haven't yet. No, I haven't. I don't.
How old is he?
He's 9. We talk about feelings. I try and like make them aware that all their feelings are warranted and so are everyone else's. So, you know, silly things, like if one of them hurts me, you know, if they're being silly and they elbow you or whatever and I say something hurts, and sometimes they'll go, oh, that didn't hurt. And I say, you can't tell people how they feel. You know, if I think that hurt me, you have to accept that it hurt me and move on, you know, even small things like that. But I also write a journal at night, and I decided to get a kids version for the boys. And I really thought they'd just kind of roll their eyes at me and say they don't want to do it. But actually, they've both really got into it. It asks you what 3 good things happened that day, and then what nice things you've done for someone in that day. And they both really enjoy doing it at night. And it gives me a good insight of what kind of a day they're having and what affects them and what doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I'm not saying that you should worry about this, so I'll have to phrase this properly, but obviously you're very open as a family and, you know, you deal with these things with them, but do you worry about it having an impact on them in that they struggle with their mental health because they see it in you? Do you know what I mean?
100%. I think it's... I always said from the moment I was pregnant, I always said, oh, I hope they're more like Wayne than me, because I just don't want them to have a brain that works like mine. Like, I'm fascinated by people, like, I don't know, maybe if you were sat there, silence, nothing going on, I'd think, oh, I wonder what you're thinking about in those moments. Whereas someone like me, I'm thinking, oh, what did I say 10 years ago that might have upset X, or what's going to happen in 5 days, or, you know, I've got this constant thing going on in my brain, and I'm fascinated with people that don't have that, because I'm like, what do you think about every day? It must be just so easy just to be like, la la la.
And so is that what's Wayne like? I mean, are you that?
I mean,
young?
he's like somewhere in the middle. He can be... He's not an anxious person. I think he's quite... we're both quite hard on ourselves. And I think we're both perfectionists. We both struggle to believe in ourselves sometimes. And I do think...
God, and you've both achieved so much.
I know. And I do think some of that has rubbed off on the boys. And I think some of that is our language that we've used around them. And I'm aware of that now. But anxiety, my youngest definitely suffers from. But my eldest not so much. And I watch my eldest and I just think he's amazing, because he's just so... I watch him with people and he's just so himself and so unaware almost of like whether someone likes him. Someone could say something to him that I think's a bit off, and he just doesn't, you know, he just does himself. If he wants to do something, he'll do it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Whereas my youngest, you know, he had a rugby match today and he was really worried about where Wayne would be. Would he know where he is? And we've had to have that conversation over the last 3 or 4 days, and I hate seeing that in him, but I hope, because it's something that I suffer with, I give him the opportunity to speak openly about that, so that hopefully it won't be something that gets bigger as he gets older.
It's so funny you say that. I mean, so my kids are older, obviously 22 and 18, and the older one is kind of me, is a stress head, and I absolutely recognise it. It's almost like seeing yourself. The other one, the little one, I don't know where she came from. I mean, she is just much more sunny-natured. She rolls with the punches. She works hard, but not too hard. She works hard enough. You know, she's that kind of thing. And I exactly as you say, I sometimes look at her and think, where did you come from? Yeah. Where did you come from? You know, in a lovely way.
See, I wouldn't say that people would have you down as a stress head.
I've changed as I've got older.
No, but Frankie, you seem so level at all times. Like, I wouldn't say that you're an emotional person. Say, like, someone like Nadia, we all know Nadia's emotional. Yeah. You know, everything is out there. Her heart's on her sleeve. She cries on the show. You know, she's everything. And I would say that you seem... I know you're the anchor, so you kind of have to be. But even as a person, you seem really level.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's nice for you to say. It's not nice or not nice. It's not...
Do you think you just keep it more... inward? You don't...
I think as I've got older, I've changed as I've got older. But when I was like in my 20s, I was a major stress head.
Really?
Yeah, I was. And my mum was always coming through. I was at university in Edinburgh and she was always coming through and, you know, taking me for lunch and talking me down. And I would say that in my 20s, I beat myself up an awful lot. And then it kind of, it changes as you get older and stuff. But that's what I recognise in my eldest. And
It's hard to
it's
see,
hard
though,
when you know
isn't it?
you've been there, and you can try and share your advice, and you can try, but actually people have got to live it, and you know what they're living, and you know how you'll see that in, in Carter, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, we're supposed to be helping people here, aren't we?
I know.
I don't know. I mean, what would you say to people then who are concerned about their own mental health, are concerned about how their children see it and how they deal with it in the family?
I think with children, I think my biggest thing when I was younger, because obviously it was less, no one really understood or thought that children had anything to be stressed or anxious about. So I think it was, like I was a real deep thinker and it was quite overlooked. And I think often when you feel that way, we all know. So say like one of my sons is scared of boats. If it doesn't matter how many times I say to him, it's not going to sink. I mean, you can't promise that anyway. But, oh, it's safe. You've been on one before. I've been on one before. Like, you're fine. It doesn't matter how many times you say that to someone. You're not making the situation any better. And it didn't help me when I was younger. I just felt more alone because I thought no one understands and no one's listening. So actually, I think just by being understanding of it, I'm not saying you have to be pander to every moment, but I think just being like, yeah, I know you're a bit nervous about it, but this is what we have to do. We all have to get on this boat. It's the only way we can get to X or whatever. We're all here together and I'll be with you type thing, rather than you're fine, get on with it. I think not batting everything off.
Did you feel alone as a kid?
I think I did, yeah. I often felt like I was quite different to everyone else because I was a deep thinker. And it's quite hard because I didn't know how to stop that, but I also felt like no one else was doing it. I was like, why am I thinking these things, And they were big things. Where had I learnt them from? I don't know. How did I know about this stuff? But it seemed like I was definitely the only child that was that way. Whereas now, obviously, I know that's not true, but it was difficult.
And were you able to speak to anyone at that time, or?
No, not really. I mean, I had an aunt who I used to be quite open about that stuff with, and she was quite good with it. But I think times have changed. I think we have moved on a bit. Like, it's no longer that like stiff upper lip. You've just got to suck it up and get on with it, or brush everything under the carpet. Like, it's not like that now. And I think a sign of that is that we are able to talk to our kids about all those things, and we are aware that children can be anxious and can be worried about things. And I'm just happy that it's got better.
Yeah, it's funny though, because there's always an assumption, isn't there, that older generations didn't talk about things, and and it is getting better. I think it absolutely is. But you saying that I'm kind of even tempered. My mum and dad were very emotional people.
Really?
I mean, oh my goodness, they would have screaming matches, and I can remember the teapot hitting the wall, and it was not an abusive household.
Yeah.
It was absolutely not.
But they say it's quite healthy for people to see arguments. So
the difference that I see is that we never framed it as mental health, because that word was one that was kind of associated, and please don't think I'm saying this wrong, was associated with illness, but actually there is mental illness in my dad's family in particular, so that was an issue, and so we were aware of that with older members of the family, but we saw anger, we saw happiness, we saw sadness, we saw frustration. So we saw all of those emotions in our house, and it was fine. I saw my mum cry, I saw my dad get angry, and it was all fine. And I think maybe, and you've just made me think about this, and I hadn't, maybe that is why I'm a bit steady, because I've seen all those big emotions, and it was fine.
Well, I think that is, although, like you say, we do assume that back in the day everything was, nothing was said, and now it is, but actually it is more spoken about. But I think people are more, we feel like everything has to be perfect all the time now. So those emotions, but those emotions aren't being seen. So you grow up thinking that in a marriage or in a relationship, if you argue, then it's broken. Or if someone cries, then they're inherently unhappy, or something's completely wrong. Whereas we have emotions that change throughout the day. you know, and relationships are long and hard and they have their ups and downs. And I think actually that is part of what we have to teach our children. But
absolutely, absolutely. And we had that sometimes, my mum and dad. Oh my goodness, they'd have some sort of thing. And so my dad would storm off, and so my mum would get me in the car. I'd be in the passenger seat. We'd drive around. We'd find where he is. I would open the door and say, "Come on, Dad. Come on, get in the car. It'll be fine." My mum was like furiously coming, and we're all having a cup of tea and an egg sandwich about half an hour later.
ooh, an egg sandwich with a
My
cup of
dad
tea.
insisted on egg sandwiches. He thought it was
Sorry, that was
everything.
my main takeaway from that. I can't let that go. I think though, if that happened with my kids, if Wayne was to storm out and we were to go and drive after him, they'd think that's it. It's a divorce.
No,
because they don't see that. So I think there's two.
I just thought it was Tuesday night.
Yeah. So I think there's a level for all of it. Have your kids seen you cry?
Yes. Oh yeah. I
Really?
mean, they see, you know, obviously losing my mum and dad was really difficult, and we've had various ups and downs, and yeah, my kids will see all my emotions and their dad's emotions. Yeah. I don't.
And do you feel like you have to explain them when they happen? If you think back to when they were younger, like now, I guess it's probably a bit easier because they're older.
Yeah, it's not been a conscious thing. I suppose they've grown up with us, and you do what's appropriate for them. I mean, I wouldn't say from a really early age, obviously you'd want to shield them from stuff. And Ian and I don't row. We're not a kind of argumentative couple. But, I mean, the most difficult time has definitely been, you know, caring for my mum and dad, and then them passing away. So that was probably about a 4-year period of our lives. And the kids were teenagers. And so, like, those two things pulling you was really, really hard. And they knew it was hard. So we didn't have any kind of secrecy.
You didn't hide it from them. Yeah.
Life's hard sometimes, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's time for another break.
Okay.
We'll see you after this. Well, welcome back. It is time for Loose Ends. Now, this is the part of the podcast where we each get to ask each other a question that we've always wanted to ask, but we don't know what it is. So, I mean, I'm waiting for it, Frankie.
I know. I feel like I'm actually being quite kind to you here.
You are. It's been great.
I want to know, obviously we talk a lot about our age difference and, you know, how you've become quite accepting of yourself now and calmer. Obviously, at my age, 36, can you remember, like, any good advice that anyone gave you when you were younger?
In terms of life at 36?
Yeah, or just when you're younger.
Well, funny enough, you know, when I was your age, I still hadn't had my first child, which is quite weird, isn't it? You know,
it's not weird.
Yeah, I know. So I didn't have Charlie till I was 39, and then I had Bonnie when I was, I like to say 42, but if I'm honest, it was 43. So I was in a completely different place at that point, and I always find it quite difficult, to be honest, to give advice to younger people, because you're in it in the moment and you've got to be in it. You know, if I was talking to myself, my 36-year-old self, I wouldn't listen to me.
No.
Because you've got to live it. But I suppose when I did go on to have the kids, and I found it difficult, particularly being pregnant at 39 for the first time and having a baby at 39, having spent all of my adult life doing exactly what I wanted when I wanted to, and I got myself in a bit of a rut. This too will pass. You know, nothing is forever. Things do change, and you can get yourself in, you know, a real kind of deep place, deep hole, can't you? But this too will pass, and you've just got to hang on. You've sometimes got to really hold those really difficult emotions and know that that you're gonna move on, that it's gonna move on, and it's gonna go forward. And yeah, I'm sorry, Frankie, that's as good as I've got.
I always think it's really hard when someone asks you for advice. You're like,
yeah,
I think that's good, because it's true.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask you, and this is a classic, but it's a good one, and I'm hoping you're going to say something, but do you have a big regret?
You know what, weirdly, I don't have any, like, proper life regrets, because I genuinely believe that, you know, everything happens for a reason. Like you say, things work out and it's kind of the path that's meant to go. But there is one regret that I have, and I think it it just shows how young I was when I got married.
Oh, the excuses are coming out from the beginning.
Let me just say. So obviously I got married when I was 24, and we had this lovely wedding. It was amazing, but I was like the first out of my friends to have a wedding. Everyone was so excited, and it was great, and it looked beautiful because that's obviously all I cared about at the time. Everything was white and glass and everything, even down to the dance floor.
And
I didn't realise it was an issue until we were actually at the wedding and we got everyone onto the dance floor, because obviously I was in my wedding dress, so it was full length down to the floor. I got a mirrored dance floor.
You upskirted yourself.
I upskirted all of my friends and family.
Oh my God.
But why did it was this amazing wedding organisers as well. Why did no one say to me, Frankie, that's probably not a great idea?
Oh no.
I didn't, because also it didn't affect me.
Right,
I was in my
okay.
long dress. I was
Right.
fine. So even when me and Wayne did our first dance, fine. All of my friends were kind of coming on, keeping their legs together, holding their dresses down, and everyone was like, Frank, what have you done? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What an idiot. Poor Nana standing there. Do you know what I mean? Nightmare.
Oh,
Yeah.
I tell you, the nanas wouldn't care.
No, don't get a mirrored dance floor, whatever you do, okay? What an idiot.
Yeah, we love to pass on advice. There you go. That's going to go home with people, isn't it? I'll bear that in mind. Not married yet. You never know.
There's still time, Kaye. There's still time.
Well, listen, that is almost it from us. If you have enjoyed the podcast, then please do follow and subscribe. It will cost you absolutely nothing, I promise you, and it means that you will not miss a single episode.
Our next episode drops on Friday, and this is where 2 more of your favourite loose women will answer some of your questions and dishy dilemmas.
So make sure to send your burning questions and dilemmas to loose.women at itv.com. So we'll see you soon.
Stay loose.